So let's carry on by talking about some of the basic rhythms that you're going to need to know moving forward. Now remember that these rhythms apply to the drums and the cymbals equally. What makes the distinction is the note head, but now we're talking about everything else. Let's start off with a quarter note. A quarter note is when you see your note head with a stem on it. Now anytime you see these notes, it means that you're playing one note right on the beat. Now be careful, because a lot of people use the word beat to describe which is all good. But I'm referring to the musical term of a beat, which means one count in a bar. Now most of the time we're counting to 4. So that means that in a bar there's usually 4 beats, but that can be different, and we'll talk more about that later. When you see a quarter note, it's telling you to play one note right on the beat, so that's when you count the number. Now every note has a corresponding rest. So a quarter rest is kind of like a little dark squiggle. When you see that, it's telling you not to play anything for one beat. So now have a look at this bar of music. You'll see that it starts with a quarter note. That means we're playing on the 1. Then we see a quarter rest. So that means when you count 2, don't play anything. Then on the 3, we have another quarter note, so we'll play a note there. And then when we count 4, you'll see that it's a quarter rest, so we aren't playing anything. If I were to play this rhythm on the snare drum with my counting, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's talk about another rhythm that's probably the most important one you need to know, and these are called eighth notes. When you see a single eighth note, it has a little flag hanging down off of the top of the stem. That's how you know it's an eighth note. Now eighth notes are 2 notes in every beat. That means one of them is half a beat. So 2 of them together complete that entire beat. Now the thing is, there's a way to count this rhythm so that you can hear it in the timing. And this is the type of counting that we're going to be doing most of the time. It sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just by saying and in between all the numbers, you can now hear 2 notes for each of those beats. So this bar of music has eighth notes all the way through it. And you can see that there's 4 pairs of notes. That means each beat is split up into eighth notes. Here's what it would sound like if I were to play this rhythm along with my eighth note counting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now remember that every note has its corresponding rest. An eighth rest looks like a little kind of curly 7. Whenever you see one of these, it's telling you to rest for half a beat. So you won't really ever see this as note and then rest. You'll see it the other way around, the eighth rest and then an eighth note all by itself. This is important. These 2 things always come together. So when you see it, it's telling you that on that beat, you aren't playing the first note, but you are playing the second one, and that's when you count and. So now have a look at this bar of music. You'll see that at the beginning, I start off with a pair of eighth notes. But then I have an eighth rest and an eighth note by itself. So that's beat 2, and it's telling me to just play when I count the and. On beat 3, we've got another pair of eighth notes. Okay, no problem. Now on beat 4, we've got a quarter note, and we talked about that before. That's 1 note right on the beat. So if I were to play this rhythm with my eighth note counting, it should sound like this. 1 and 2. And. Now you don't have to be a pro with these rhythms right off the bat. You're going to get better at them, learning to play them and read them and what they sound like as you go onwards. But you want to get to know what they look like and what they mean now, because the next few lessons are going to start to introduce some really basic groove patterns and different rhythms to play on the drums, and they're going to be notated this way. So you have to be able to make sense of the notation. And the only way to do that is to get to know your quarter notes, your eighth notes, and their corresponding rests.